Sheldon Fell, and this is Grief Diaries, and we are going backstage behind the scenes to feature different co-authors and writers who are part of the Grief Diaries village. And today we are sitting with Christine Duminiak, and Chris is co-author of Grief Diaries Memos from Heaven. She also wrote the foreword for Grief Diaries Loss of a Parent, which is right here. And Chris is, you're actually kind of a prolific author already. You've done God's Gift of Love. You did your first children's book this last December. And you also have authored, Heaven Talks to Children as well.
Great. That's good.
And Chris is the founder of Prayer Wave for After-Death Communication. She's a certified grief recovery specialist, radio co-host of Ask the Angel Show. She has been on Fox and Friends, CBS, Fox News, Coast to Coast AM, and the God Squad. And Chris, you are an expert in after-death communication, otherwise known as ADCs. And
I am not a psychic or medium either.
You're not a psychic or medium, yet in 1998, you had a moment of time, an hour in your bedroom, one night that changed everything for you. What happened?
Absolutely. Well, prior to March of 1998, when this happened to me, I really wasn't a believer. I was sort of when people would talk to me about this topic, I just wasn't interested. I couldn't relate to it. But my dead in-laws, my husband's parents, showed up in our bedroom, and they stayed for an hour. And that will really change your whole thinking when you've had a mystical experience like this. Now, they didn't just stop there. They kept repeating their appearances a few times a week and returning and returning and returning. And I didn't understand what this was about. I thought perhaps it was a health warning because my husband had had cancer in the past. So I started to research the topic and to learn everything that I could about this subject. And what I realized, my experience was called an after-death communication, also known as an ADC, which is a spontaneous and direct spiritual contact from a deceased family member or friend without the use of psychics or mediums or any type of rituals. And I started to get going along that path. And I was noticing that other people were getting them besides myself. Grievers were so at peace if they received a contact, but there were so many people who weren't receiving them, who were desperate to know that their loved ones were okay. That's why they really wanted a sign. And that's how I ended up founding Prayer Wave for After-Death Communication, where we would actually pray for people to get an afterlife sign. But we've now moved into Facebook. We are in the 21st century now, and we are called After-Death Communication and Prayer Wave. Okay. So my first, most people get a subtle after-death communication, and they're not really sure if this is their loved one. But when they're in the room with you showing themselves, you cannot poo-poo this. You cannot dismiss it as it's just my imagination, especially when they stay for an hour.
Well, I have to ask you, when that happened, had you had any prior ADCs before that time?
No.
And so, didn't it scare you?
Yes, it did. And luckily, prior to that, God was getting me ready because I had just read James Van Prague's book, Talking to Heaven, and I thought that was amazing. Someone could really see and talk to spirits. Isn't that amazing? But I never thought it would happen to me. So if I had not have read that book, I would have been even more out of my mind than I probably was that evening. But when it happened to me, I had rosaries under my pillow, and I started praying like crazy, and the whole room turned a beautiful blue color with white streaking lights through
Wow.
it. And I felt a feeling of peace and calm. And I saw a woman over my doorway dressed in white in a veil, which kind of reminded me of like the Blessed Mother or people that dress like that in the days of Jesus, as if to say, it's okay. It's okay. It's safe.
Wow.
And then then I was able to go with it and feel very at peace and a calm, and remember that my husband was sleeping beside me and that he should know that his parents are in the room, so he'd have the ability to get to see them also, but
Sure.
he didn't. Yeah. So
And so you've gone on to work in this field, and you know you've written a number of books on it. What are the most common ADCs?
the most common ones, I think, are dream visits. Because when we're in our dream state, it's very easy for spirits to connect with us and to spend time with us. Other ones are audio. You might hear a song that connects you to them.
Okay.
And so you know, and you might just happen to turn on the radio and that will happen, or walk into a store. Then we leave you coins, but they'll repeat their particular type of signs once they know that you get it, it's from them. So that's why it's very important that you acknowledge it and don't just poo-poo it, because you'll notice if you do say thank you and you thank God also, that you will start getting repeat of the same type of afterlife signs. Some other ones would be like they can work with electrical lights,
Oh, right.
electronics. Um, they will play around with your TV. They use birds, butterflies, insects to let us know that they're around. In those cases, when it comes to like animals and insects and birds, the creature will do something really peculiar to get your attention, and that's how you know it's them. So instead of just something flying by, you look for something that acts like they act like they know you, or they'll do something out of the ordinary to get your attention.
Sure. Now, what about people who are skeptic or people who are, been raised with a very strict religious upbringing? Uh, what do you say to them?
All right, most people that usually, are you talking about if you are sharing this with someone who's a skeptic, or if you're a skeptic yourself?
If you are sharing, because I think a lot of people experience after death communication, but they don't share it with those around them for fear that they'll be ridiculed
Exactly.
or, the skeptics will, tell them they're crazy or what have you. And
Yes.
so
Th-
when
That,
someone
that,
says
yeah.
that to you, how do you reply?
I understand that because I was skeptical before it happened to me. So I don't think you can really convince someone that you've had a real experience unless it's really something that's mind blowing, like, your dead in laws showing up in your bedroom. But I think in that case, you should look for people who've had similar experiences to share them with, who will rejoice with you and not think you're crazy. And like my Facebook group would be a perfect place to go where there's absolutely no ridicule. But you could like kind of like, I would say, start out feeling a little bit, just kind of say, I think I might have had a sign, and see if the person picks up on it and wants to hear more. If they don't pick up on it, then just kind of drop it. But I think you'll find the most acceptability would be in your own family. For instance, if your mother passed and you mention it to a sister, they may be more open. And then they might share with you that they've also had experiences too. So I would just tread lightly. And if you find that you're getting acceptance, that's great. And that means you have a wonderful ally that you can share it with. But if you're getting some blowback, then that's not the right person.
Sure, fair enough, fair
Mhm.
enough. Well, I think you can probably hear all that noise in the background, and that is our family cat. And he wants to get in on the action. So, really, I promise it's not an elephant, it's a cat.
I
And
think I can hear you in
so
this music.
I apologize. So, we've got just a few minutes left. What do you want people to know about ADCs?
All right. For those who are wondering if their loved ones are okay, they need to know that if they're getting a comforting sign from their loved one, that means that they are in heaven with God, because they do not have the supernatural power to be able to communicate with us unless they're in heaven with God, and God grants permission. So if you are hoping or wishing or praying for an afterlife sign, go directly to God and ask if your loved one can visit you in a comforting way. And then state something specific to your loved one that you would recognize as a sign from them. This way, if you have doubts, you will no longer have doubt. If you ask for, say, a butterfly, and the butterfly flies around you, acts like it wants to come into the window, or someone sends you a card with a butterfly. So that's a two-step tip that I like people to know about. That if they get that sign, they know that their loved one is in heaven with God. Hmm.
Okay, wonderful. How can people get a hold of you, Chris?
They can go to my website, ChristineDuminiak.com, ChristineDuminiak.com. I have a beautiful website that you, Linda, helped me put together, so thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. What about Facebook?
Facebook, same thing. Just look me up, and also if look for my Facebook group if you are grieving after death communication and prayer wave, because that is the perfect place to go, where people will help you. They'll pray for you to get a sign. Every Friday is Prayer Wave Friday, so we pray for people to get a sign on Fridays, and you can share with us. And if you're not sure if you received a sign, we'll talk to you about it and help you know whether you did or not. So, but usually if
Beautiful.
people feel that they did, they did. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you being with us here today on Grief Diaries. And look Chris up if you've got any questions on after-death communication. Her books are available on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles. You can also find her on the internet. And you're everywhere. So thank you so much, Chris. We look forward to seeing you next time. And thanks so much for joining us here as we go backstage of Grief Diaries. We'll see you next time.